Need for Speed has gone through so many changes that it means different things to different people. Being raised by Underground and Most Wanted alike, I can understand how these games represent for some the peak of the franchise. But I disagree. Wait, I said. You can fight me in the comments when this video is over, I promise. There's one game so good that even in 22 years it wasn't imitated by anyone else, a game which kept Porsche and EA working together for over a decade, and it made me a car enthusiast. That's right, this game defined part of my life. Need for Speed Porsche has two main game modes, which are like nothing you ever seen before. We start with Evolution. At first, things look normal, despite the somewhat confusing menus. You are presented with an event and empty garage, with some money to buy your first car. In the dealership, you are greeted by a Porsche 356. Wait, is this a new car? You bet it is. Evolution mode's main mechanic is racing through time. You start in 1950 when the first generation of the Porsche 356 was released, and the only time in history when you could buy a new Porsche for 10k. Oh yes, the life before 70 years of unhinged money printing. Thanks, degenerate money printers. You know what doesn't devalue it, however? Your like. Giving one helps this video out a lot. With this shiny new Porsche, we head into the first event. These are tournaments with multiple races. The usual point system ranks each driver based on their position. As the first race starts, you'll be greeted with a beautiful track. It's hard to ignore, despite the older graphics, how good these maps look. Nothing like the usual dark and grey cities which Need for Speed will feature so prominently in the future releases. Here though, every track is colorful, the perfect routes for cruising with these expensive sport cars. But they are more than a pretty background, and trust me, you better learn these tracks fast. They aren't circuits, instead replaced by rally-like routes in open roads. Many of them feature alternate roads, some of them are shortcuts and some others aren't, instead punishing you with a lost position. Hell, some tracks aren't even in tarmac, instead racing across dirt and even snowy roads. They are treacherous roads that need to be approached with caution. It's easy to misjudge a turn or miss a braking zone at first, causing unnecessary damage to your car. Avoiding damage is vital, not only because you get paid extra for finishing races without it, but the fact it has a massive effect on your car's performance. A few impacts at high speed can render your car undrivable, making it impossible to compete for a victory. And I have to say, for its time, the damage model is excellent. The body of each car deforms depending on the strength and area of the impact. They can affect the engine's performance and even force your steering to tilt towards one side, forcing constant corrections to keep it straight. When faster cars are unlocked later in the game, a single crash at high speed can be the end of your race, especially when the AI can be pretty quick and present a challenge by the later stages. However, there's nothing to worry on the first few races, as they are nowhere to be found. You race with every iteration of the Porsche 356, and improvements can be appreciated. If the first generation, which is known as Pre-A, was friendly and easy to drive, the A and B 356s are enough to get you in trouble if you aren't careful with them. This progression is excellent to introduce us to Need for Speed 5's ambitious physics engine. If there's a proof you can have an arcade racer with physics leaning towards realism, it's this game. In Need for Speed 5, weight transfer dictates most of the experience. Given most cars are rear biased, there's some amount of vagueness on the front axle when you turn in. Most of the time, you can feel the car struggling to grip and ready to go wide into the nearest wall. The best way to counter this feeling is tapping the brakes as you start to turn in, just enough to make the car rotate and power your way out. It's a bit tricky to get the timings right, as you don't have to slam the brakes to get this effect. When you are pushing and driving on the limits, it truly feels as such, which is possible thanks to its brilliant suspension physics. Cars roll in every turn and you can feel this in your inputs. If you go past this limit, whatever happens afterwards is your own fault. Losing control while on throttle isn't common. While braking braking though, that's a different story. Tapping the brakes is fine, dare I say a must-do to master this game's driving style, but long braking zones are risky. There's a big chance of locking up and going sideways in the worst moments. Then again, I think it's a good wake-up call. Brakes aren't meant to be used in the last 10 meters before a corner, you know. If you brake early and match your downshifts, you should make it through the tightest turns just fine. Not that there's many in these tracks, just be careful with downshifting. If you over-rev it, you'll spin out. While I like how braking feels in this game, I have to say it kind of shows the limits of the physics engine. While weight transfer works, it is exaggerated, and the best example comes when braking at high speeds. As all the weight of the car shifts to the front, it will cause the rear to lift from the ground, to the point where it can make you flip while braking. It is disappointing and frustrating when it happens, as for most of the time, the game behaves well and kind of shows this engine needed more time to be developed, which is a shame because EA never used it again from my knowledge. The next Need for Speed game had nothing to do with it, but at least we got to experience it while driving some of the best cars ever made. The game comes alive by the time you get those hands on the first 911 ever released, which comes after completing the 356B tournament. The original 911 is such a game changer, as it's not only faster but harder to control than anything you ever driven previously, which is fitting given the reputation these cars had for being metal coffins for inexperienced drivers. With the first 911 and S variants, the first stage of evolution comes to an end, the last race providing a chance to win a Porsche 550A. There are 3 races in the game where you can win a different race car depending on the era, making these 3 the only events where you can win a car. And thank God, because these cars are expensive as fuck and they are little more than garage queens for most of the game, which is very realistic. Another thing which is realistic is the game's used car market, which might be the best used car market in a racing game ever. After you complete the first tournament, this market is unlocked and can be accessed through your garage. In most games, used cars are reduced to cheaper versions of the same cars you could buy new. In the better cases like Gran Turismo, there are older cars that can only be bought in the second-hand market. In Need for Speed 5, the new and used car markets work in tandem. As you beat a tournament, the game's timeline moves forward, usually unlocking the next set of cars required to progress. As you visit the new car dealership to buy the next car, you realize the cars you could buy previously were replaced by these new models. And where you can find them now? That's right, the used car market. Now I know what you'll say. If you're trying to collect all the cars, this sounds like a nightmare, but not really, because once you unlock the used car market, you have unlocked an infinite money source. In this game, cars are truly used, they're wrecked. You can buy these wrecked cars, repair them, and sell them for a profit. Yes, you can run a Porsche workshop from your garage. Need for Speed Car Mechanic Simulator? This is the best way to make money in the game, which means you'll be able to buy all the cars you want from the new and used car market. A small piece of advice, keep your eyes open as some cars only show as used and can't be bought new. Another part of this system are evolving values. As a real market, the value of certain cars will increase over time and some others will decrease. The best example is the 2.7 Carrera RS. The moment this car goes away from the new car dealership, values skyrocket and they don't stop increasing until the endgame, which I understand. Who doesn't want one of these beauties? And really, I have to talk about this car because it showcases one of the game's biggest flaws. But before I begin, I want to mention how most people who watch my videos aren't subscribed to my channel. If you want to find more content regarding car culture and racing games, you should tap the subscribe button and look through my channel as well. I'm certain you will enjoy it. And now we go back to our schedule. After the classic era comes the golden era in evolution mode, where the game decides to throw a massive wrench at your progress. After driving the 911 for a few races, you expect to drive something similar, but no. The first tournament is the 914 Cup, where you'll be driving Porsche's new budget release for 1970. This will be fine if the game included both variants that Porsche released, the 914-4 and -6, the later one featuring a 6-cylinder engine. Guess which one they included? That's right, the Dash 4. To add insult to injury, the game features each variant released of this car, which makes for 3 terrible cars that you'll never use. It gets worse since the more powerful variants of the Dash 4 were released after 1970 and you can't buy them for this event, locking you to the slowest out of the 3. Not for the AI though, as they have access to every variant of the 914 in this tournament. And really, the AI drivers become a massive challenge at this stage of the game, so it's kind of tough if you aren't prepared. Upgrading each car becomes vital at this stage, and it can be confusing as buying the parts doesn't install them. You got to install them yourself. These upgrades make a massive difference, especially in handling, as stiffer suspension reduces body roll and keeps each car planted through the corners. There's a basic system where you can change ride height, brake balance, and even tire pressure. If you manage to beat the 914 tournament though, the 2.7 Carrera RS awaits, ready to be bought. This is one of the fastest cars in the game, and also one of the trickiest to drive, which again is quite accurate. While yes, it is a blast to drive, there's a problem. Each era has 6 tournaments, and you'll use the RS for 3 of these 6 tournaments in the golden era. This has the unfortunate side effect of missing out on some important milestones in Porsche's history. By example, the Porsche 928 is nowhere to be seen. You'll only find the 928 GTS way later, and it's not even competitive by the time you can buy it. The entire G-body generation of the 911, which lasted all the way until 1989, is only represented by the 930 Turbo, missing out on the early 3L RS among other models. While I understand why the standard 924 might be missing, I find it baffling given they decide to add the worst of the 914-4. You would think they could at least add the 924 GT, which isn't a bad car by any means. The 944 is well represented, but that doesn't help the game's pacing. While I understand why you will want players to use the 2.7 RS for a few events, given it's one of Porsche's most iconic models, I can't say I enjoy how the game reduces your car choices at this stage. When you look at the classic era, you had a plethora of models of the 356. Each version had a ton of variants to choose from, with different engines, options and body styles, and now this freedom is taken away from you. Honestly, I can make a better timeline for the golden era. I will start with the 914, but I will add the 914-6 to the lineup instead, then moving to the 2.7 RS. Since the G-bodies aren't well represented, I will add the 3L RS to the game's lineup as well, making an event for both the 2.7 and 3 liters to race against. By now it's 1975 and the 3L Turbo is released to the market, and the game already has a tournament for it, so we'll use that instead. In 1978 the Porsche 928 is released and a new tournament is created for this revolutionary car. I swear I have to make a video in defense of the Porsche transaxle. Tell me in the comments if you will watch it. Anywho, after the 928 we could move to the 924 Carrera GT in 1981, which is a seriously underrated homologation special, which Porsche built only 400 units of. To end the cycle of Porsche transaxles, we will race the 944 afterwards in 1982, and how will the golden era end in my rework tournaments? With the Porsche 959 in 1986. You might think this is impossible, but the fun part is, only the Carrera 3 liters and 914-6 weren't featured in the other release of Need for Speed Porsche. The original 928 and 924 Carrera GT were featured in the PlayStation 1 release of this game, which means they had the licenses for them, and I'll talk about this release a bit later. The final stage of evolution is called Modern Era, and it starts in 1989 with the release of the 964 generation of the Porsche 911. This was a revolutionary release as it featured an all-wheel drive system, which Porsche first developed in the 959. Now you see how everything ties up? Anyway, the Modern Era faces a similar issue as the Golden Era when it comes to car choices, as they are quite limited. At some moments it's worse, as you can finish a tournament only to see a plethora of cars being released for the tournament you previously beaten. I find it kind of disappointing how the 964 and 993 are kind of reduced to 3 models, when the game features multiple cars of these 2 generations. In a normal playthrough, you'll only drive the 964 Carrera 4, the 964 Turbo 3.6 and 993 Turbo. Maybe it's me, but for two of the most important and iconic generations of the 911, this is sad. It feels as a ladder made to bring us towards the 996 generation as fast as possible, which is featured in the two final events of the game. It is important to note that this game was released in 2000, when the 996 generation was the new and shiny 911, and these things are outright overpowered. The 996 Turbo, which is the final car you'll use, is nothing short of mind-boggling. It does feel a bit cheap in the end, and totally the reason why a 996 Turbo is a dream car of mine. After earning almost 500,000 credits with this sledgehammer, Evolution comes to an end. Sure, you can try the different club events, which are races with different conditions, such as traffic or rally-style events where positions are decided by overall time. They are fun for a bit of extra content. Overall, Evolution serves as the main dish of Need for Speed Porsche, and despite a few questionable design choices, it's a brilliant experience which no other game can replicate to this day. There is one game mode left to play through, and just like Evolution, it's a unique concept that I haven't seen in any other racing game. This game mode is called Factory Driver, and it puts you on the shoes of a Porsche test driver. Many of the missions are built around a small test track, while you perform different maneuvers to test different cars or layouts. It's funny how often slalom tests are featured, given Porsches always struggle with this due to their engine layout. This mode has a small history with a few characters. Even if it's presented through text at the start of each mission, it's enough to create a few rivalries among the crew. In some occasions you'll race against these characters, and it's fun to see and hear their different attitudes. Some try to have fun while some others try to annoy you and one-up you all the time. If you fail a mission, they'll make fun of you as it should be. In one occasion they even mention waiting for the boss to go away so they can sneak out and race. I do have to say, Porsche must be quite lenient because the accidents this guy can have while racing turn those cars into complete write-offs. It hurts to watch. Another type of mission is delivering cars to customers, which I find hilarious as you have to break every speed limit in order to get there in time, and avoid cops as well. Yes, this game has police chases. Most Wanted fans rejoice. In the course of 34 missions, you'll go from being a newly hired rookie to Porsche's ace test driver, and the first thing which stood out on my playthrough of this mode was how uneven the difficulty curve can be. By the fourth mission, the game throws at you one of the biggest challenges you'll face. It consists on doing a 360-degree spin and driving away, all in the same maneuver. If someone figures how to do this by their own, they deserve a medal. The game is very finicky in where you have to start and end this maneuver to count as passed, which means you'll spend some time trying to figure out the timing for each input, as it boils down to. Personally, I still struggle to this day with the timing, and missions with this maneuver were the only thing stopping me from blazing through every event. A similar problem with checkpoints comes in certain missions which take place in the open road. You'll be driving across the same tracks as before, and by now they are engraved in your memory, so of course you'll try to take the fastest route at each mission as it has a time limit, but the game is having none of that, and it throws a wrench at your pace by forcing the player into the slowest routes without much of a warning. And this is a problem when you're doing 200 and you have to brake and turn in 50 meters. It feels like a cheap beginner's trap. Also, in some open road missions you'll have to deal with traffic, and it's the usual Need for Speed traffic, you know, the sort of cars that you can't see until it's too late or conveniently placed on the correct line. Another special mention goes to one of the final missions, while you record a commercial for Porsche, and it's composed of these complex maneuvers, including those dreaded 360s. The funniest part is, the game forces the player to drive with manual transmission in this mission. There's no mercy for Tiptronic users. While there's not much to describe in these missions, they are fun to play and they have rewards. You can win 3 different cars with unique paint jobs. While I get they might not be for everyone, they're enough for me to keep playing. All in all, it's another unique experience. While Evolution is the main dish, Factory Driver is a lot of fun. It's a best job simulator. Playing this game again makes me think about Need for Speed as a franchise. The first few games were closer to the Gran Turismo games of its time. Need for Speed wasn't as removed from reality as it is today. The physics were meant to give players the experience of driving at ridiculous speeds without being brain dead easy. They made cars very grippy and tracks were wide, but they still require some care in order to drive well. You can't just turn in and hope it grips. Proper braking and turning is required to use the fastest lines and get the faster times. In Need for Speed Porsche this formula was perfected. Sure, as I said before, it has a bit of issues with weight transfer, but given how few games even had this mechanic in them, I can say I forgive them. If anything, it's a crime EA didn't use much of their experience for future releases. Need for Speed Porsche stands among the rest of the franchise as the best simcade they ever made, and to make it more impressive, it even made a great job at being a playable car museum, a feature which Gran Turismo 2 just started a few months before. While Need for Speed Porsche had way less cars, they have so many features such as working interiors and folding roofs. For the year 2000, these features were out of this world. For context, the only time I've been able to sit in a Porsche, an orange 911 G-body, I was able to recognize the dials, steering wheel and layout thanks to this game, but I assume it isn't fair to compare two different games from different platforms, so let's talk about that PSX release, shall we? Of course I'm going to waste more of your time. To start off, the PlayStation 1 release has very little to do with its PC counterpart. Sure, I'll say it beforehand, as a PlayStation 1 title, it isn't a bad game. It's not PS2 undercover levels of awful, and I sunk countless hours into it, but even when comparing it with Need for Speed 4, it is a downgrade. The complex car physics that make it so enjoyable in the PC are missing here. Cars don't feel terrible, but the controllers are really sensitive. I think this game was meant to be played with a D-pad. I think most of the problems were amplified by the awful track layouts. Allow me to elaborate. The rally stages from the PC were replaced by traditional circuits, and these aren't good. They look pretty for a PlayStation 1 game, but the layouts aren't enjoyable. They are full of 90-degree turns, and the fastest way to get through these is just flicking the car into them. A lot of times it's difficult to place the car and you'll just slide from wall to wall trying to find the right lines. The worst offenders are by far the objects placed in multiple tracks where cars can get stuck, such as light poles and even some specific walls in certain tracks. These will destroy your race, and given the imprecise and sensitive driving physics, you'll crash into them. There is a basic weather system. It can rain or snow at certain times, and this affects handling slightly, but not by much. There is also night races, but your headlights don't really illuminate the road and it's hard to see. I had to increase my brightness to blinding levels to see these roads. Evolution mode is present, but the timeline progression has been butchered. All cars for each era are unlocked from the get-go, with your wallet being the only limiting factor. How realistic. This system somewhat ruins the progression offered in the PC release. Cars are divided by 3 different classes in the same manner, but the problem comes with the main tournaments. There are 3 of these per era, 1 for each car class, which means you'll be driving a very limited amount of cars through each playthrough. And to make it worse, you can't collect all of the cars as garage slots are limited. Cars look pretty good for the PlayStation 1, but only the player cars has a good model. The AI uses these low polygon models and they look quite terrible. By now, Gran Turismo 2 had the same models for the AI cars, and so did Need for Speed 4. These two games also had 6 cars in track, while Need for Speed Porsche only has 4 or 5 in circuit races. In the subject of cars, there are a few unique cars to the PlayStation 1, which makes it only more disappointing to see them missing from the PC. Gems like the 911 Speedster, Carrera RS 964 3.8, which is a very rare car, and the almighty 917, and even the first Porsche ever made. The first prototype of the 356 can be bought here. Factory Driver is also present, but again it's a butchered version of it, with 12 missions instead of the original 34. These are quite short and aren't even challenging, so it plays and feels like an afterthought sadly. On an extra small note, the AI can be blistering quick or slow as a snail after sleeping pills. From personal experience, I can say the PlayStation 1 release is well known thanks to how fucking difficult difficult it was to make the PC release work properly. Back in the XP days when I was a kid, I could never get this game to work properly on my computer. Nowadays it's way easier as there are patches that have been released to fix all of the issues. I am not going to make a complete guide on how to install this game, but I will tell you where to start, find it, install it, and visit PC Gaming Wiki. Also, search for something called complete patch. The rest I'm sure you can take care of. You are a smart person after all. You made it this far in my video and that already makes you a clever man. If EA wanted to give this game the treatment it deserved, they should have released it for the PC and hold the console versions until the release of the PS2. I can only imagine how good it would have been to see this as a release title. It would have been interesting to see a Need for Speed Simcade stealing the thunder from Gran Turismo. All in all, Need for Speed Porsche is a game that deserves to be visited. It's only a year younger than me and it stood the test of time way better, that's for sure. It is ambitious and still, 22 years later, there's no other game that has attempted the same gameplay as Evolution, which is something I want to see one day. While it might not be the most known Need for Speed game, it is the most important in a personal level. It is the first racing game I ever played, and if it wasn't for it, I don't think I would be here, let alone be a car enthusiast. Personally, I think EA should give up in trying to revive Underground. It's not going to happen. It was a product of a bygone era, and if the franchise wants to stay alive and relevant, it should look on its origins instead, and Need for Speed Porsche is the absolute peak of said origins. And now, you can finally fight me in the comments, but don't forget to leave a like and subscribe beforehand. I hope you have enjoyed this video and I will be seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.